leadership extends to more than just the areas that we do work in or the areas we speak in. It also extends to our finances. Today, we're going to talk about how to lead yourself and how to lead your finances with the best-selling author, Rachel Richards.
Welcome to Advance with Mike Acker, the podcast designed to help entrepreneurs, business leaders, and professionals alike break through barriers by improving their practical leadership skills and increasing confidence in speaking. Your host is a best-selling author, executive coach, and founder of the Advance Public Speaking School and Advantage Publishing Group, two companies dedicated to providing an edge for leaders. Find out more about Mike at mikeacker.com. Now here's your host, Mike Acker.
Rachel, thank you so much for being on the show with me. This is going to be a lot of fun. You and I go back almost 2 years now.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited to be on. Thanks for inviting me.
It's so fun that back then, 2 years ago, you were looking for a communication coach because you had a huge engagement that you were going to be speaking at. You had written your book, Money Honey. It had taken off 400 reviews at the time, and people were reaching out to you to speak. Since then, you've done a whole bunch more, and we'll hear about that today. But I'm looking forward to diving in. Do you remember that first time talking? You and I were kind of going back and forth, and it was kind of like, okay, is she going to be a good client? Is he going to be a good coach?
Yes. And what I remember, it's so funny because I'm still cheap, as you know, and I was looking for ways to save on money then. So I remember approaching you and being like, well, can we barter our services potentially? I remember feeling like self-conscious. I didn't want to offend you or anything. I was like, what if I teach you how to write a book and you can teach me how to speak? And then you were like, yeah, let's do it. And now look at us. I'm a professional speaker and you've written like 3 best-selling books.
Yeah. It was so interesting. You told me that. I remember that the barter offer, and I was like, whatever, I'm not doing that, right? And then you had planted the idea. So I went and investigated it and thought, what would I write a book on? And I wrote a book on the most commonly asked question when people came to me was, how do I get over my fear of speaking? Hence, Speak with No Fear. But really, it came from that relationship. So in other places, we both have talked about how big of an influence we've had on each other. You to get your platform out there, and me for building the platform that the book became.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. We have such a special relationship, but I definitely would never have done that speech without your help.
Absolutely. And I wouldn't have done the book. So
Yay!
Here we are. It was so fun. I got to meet up with you in person and your husband. We all went out to eat together in Colorado as I was driving across the country. So super fun. I'm looking forward to the years to come to see what happens in collaborations.
Absolutely.
But today, we don't want to just relive the fun story we've been on. We do want to talk about your financial leadership. This podcast and this show is ultimately about the combination of leadership and communication. You came to me looking for a communication coach. And what I saw in that moment was that you weren't just going to be speaking to a group of people, college age, you were actually leading them, because leadership is influence. So you were leading them. So as I think through the different questions that we were talking about today, first one, let's just hone in on your books, Money Honey, and then Passive Income, Aggressive Retirement. How do you see your books and your speaking, everything that you're doing, affecting people? Tell us maybe a story and some of the cool things that have been happening.
Yeah, a lot has come from my books. It's incredible. And I love that I love to see myself as a leader. I love that you said that, because I think anyone that has a platform, whether you're an author or an influencer, you are leading. You're leading by example. With Money Honey, I started writing it because I used to be a financial advisor, and all my family and friends would come to me for financial advice, which I loved. At the same time, I began to wonder, well, why aren't they reading books or learning on their own? And then I had this aha moment where I realized, oh yeah, personal finance is boring for most people. It's intimidating, it's complex, it's dry. No wonder people don't like to learn about it. So I thought to myself, how can I make this topic sassy and fun and simple? And that's where the idea for Money Honey came from. So I started writing it in 2017. I had a crisis about halfway through, and I was like, this sucks. Who's going to listen to me? I wanted to quit writing. I had a lot of self-doubt and imposter syndrome, but then I eventually picked it back up at the encouragement of a friend and went through with publishing it. And really, at the end of the day, the only reason I went through with publishing it is because I told myself, if I can just help one person, that's all I want to do. And I think if I had been out to make a quick money grab, people would have seen right through that and it wouldn't have done as well. Thankfully, I did go through with it because it astonishingly did so well. I mean, I'm still shocked at how much it's taken off, how many copies I've sold. I have almost 800 reviews on Amazon now. And there's nothing as impactful. Like, it's great to make money from them, but there's nothing as rewarding as getting an email from a reader saying, "Thank you so much. Your book changed my life. I've been able to get out of the paycheck to paycheck, pay off my credit cards. Thank you so much." I mean, I get a lot of those messages, and there's nothing more humbling than that.
Yeah, I love what you said right there about writing it for one person. One of my core philosophies in coaching people in communication is that you have to be thinking about how to add value. This has got to be helpful to the people you're talking to. So even in the podcast, we have a question today where you're just going to be able to add that value. They right now get to hear the stories that we're doing, but they get to also hear some of those principles that ultimately at the end of the time that you listen to someone, at the end of the time you read the book, it's got to make an impact on that person's life.
Yeah, exactly. And when you think about writing a book, I mean, there are thousands, millions of books, especially personal
Millions.
finance is a very competitive category. So you have to be able to articulate, why would someone buy your book or listen to your speech or listen to your podcast over the thousands that are already out there? If you can't
Right.
articulate that well, you're going to have a hard time selling it. And like you said, it really comes down to finding a problem or a hole in the market and filling that need and really adding value.
Right. I was in sales for a while. And in sales, we always talked about selling to the gap. Discover the gap between where they are and where they want to go, and then sell to the gap. Find out how you can fit that area. There's even been some people that I've been on a consultation with, like you and I had. And at the end of the call, I just say, I don't think I'm the person for you. I don't think because sure, I could add some value, but it wasn't the gap that I could fill for them. And I'll suggest someone else and suggest a different service for them. We like to think that we're able to fit everyone, but we really can't. And you and I even talked when we had dinner together that there's some reviews that of people who have left some just nasty things about our books. Like, you're stupid. This is the dumbest book I ever read.
Oh my gosh, wasn't one of yours about like a lunch menu or something?
Yeah, I got a couple. One got reported because it was just so big out there. But my most recent one, I actually shared this in a recent episode of this, where I talked about embracing rejection and allowing it to feed yourself. But that's a different topic. That's a different one that I just did.
Yeah.
Well, tell us some key principles. Teach us a little bit. Tell us how we can get better ultimately at managing money now. But one of the amazing things that you've done is retire at 27. Now I'll come back to that. So don't go too into depth right now on that. But can you just give us something here that will give us some guidance into where we're going?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we can talk about passive income next. But in terms of people that are just starting out and don't know where to begin, really the first step in getting your finances in order is tracking your expenses. Like, that is the first thing you do, is you track your expenses for 1 month. It will be very eye-opening where you're spending your money. So for example, and I feel like I shouldn't admit this because I'm supposed to be a finance guru, but the first month my husband and I did this, we realized we were spending over $900 a month on groceries. Not even restaurants, just groceries for 2 people. So that was so embarrassing to me. I mean, that's more than some people spend on their mortgage or rent payment. So believe me, it'll be very obvious where you can cut back, and you'll naturally want to put a budget into place from there. I know budgeting is like a very dreaded word. No one likes to be on a budget, but here's a quote from Dave Ramsey that I love. He said, "A budget is simply telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went."
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's one of those soak it in moments. Can
absolutely.
you say it again and we can all go, oh.
Yeah, let me say that one more time. A budget is simply telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went.
Now, just for those who want to get better in their communication right now, when you have a great one-liner like that, you need to say it, pause, say it again, and pause, just like what Rachel just did there. That's fantastic. So you tell people how to budget after they track their expenses?
Yeah. And then I would say the next step is how to increase your savings rate. When I teach in workshops, I'll ask people, if you're trying to save up money quickly, what sorts of things do you do? A lot of people will say, I'll eat out less. I'll make my coffee at home. I'll stop shopping. And all of those are great answers. I realized over time that there's a common theme there. We're all focused on decreasing our expenses. And that is definitely important. We have to live within our means, but it's limited. There's only so much you can do to decrease your expenses. You can't stop paying for car insurance or your mortgage payment. So if you really want to make an impact with your savings, there's actually two ways to increase your savings rate. Number one is to decrease your expenses, and number two is to increase your income. For whatever reason, we just don't think about that a lot. But the great thing about increasing your income is that there's no cap on how much money you can make in a year. There's nothing stopping you from making more money. And you don't have to give up your quality of life or sacrifice things in order to do that. So that's how you really make an impact and start to make massive moves financially, is by decreasing your expenses and increasing your income so that you're saving as much money as possible.
I love that. And that really goes into this whole leadership. It's not something that just happens to you. You can proactively lead your own life. You can lead your own finances and not just let it happen to you. I'm sure one of the pushbacks that you get is, well, I can't get a raise in my job. So what are some ways that you tell people, here's how you can increase your finances?
There are two categories of income. First, you have active income. That's where you're trading your time for money. Chances are most of us have, a full-time job or a part-time job where you're going in, working a certain number of hours per week and making a paycheck. Active income is the easiest income to generate because it's a simple time versus money trade-off. So you can go pick up a part-time job on the weekends. You can do things like babysitting and mowing lawns and walking dogs, things like that. So that's easier to do. But the category of income that I personally love to talk about is passive income. Passive income is money that is earned with little to no ongoing effort. It's definitely no get rich quick scheme. I don't want people to think that. It does take time or money to create passive income. But once you have it going and you have it built, it becomes a lot more hands off. And that's when it really becomes passive. And the epiphany I had several years ago is that once your passive income exceeds your living expenses, you're retired, you're financially independent. And that's what I started working towards.
I love that. So once your passive income is greater than your living expenses that you budget, and you can choose the quality of life that you want, that's when you're essentially retired. And then anything above and beyond is what?
That's just buffer. That's cushion for you. That's more money that you're saving. Personally, when my husband and I started working towards financial independence, our expenses at the time were probably $6,000 a month. We could have achieved this sooner if we had a more frugal budget, but we weren't interested in that. We wanted to be able to live with no constraints. So we could have retired on a passive income of $6,000 per month. But we want to still be able to save money. We want to have a lot of buffer room. If there's any unexpected expenses, we want to be able to cover that. So that's why we initially aimed for $10,000 a month in passive income. And we got there last year in 2019.
I love that. And I know that Andrew continues to work because he loves his job. And so that's been fantastic above and beyond. But he works from home. So you guys are out and about hiking and doing all kinds of outdoorsy adventures during a time when you can't be indoors a lot. So that freedom that comes with it. So much of finances and financial management is just self-leadership. It's like routines that you do in the day. Wake up in the morning and lead your day. One of the things I do is make my bed every day because it makes me feel like I'm in charge. Well, there's a sense of being in charge when you do this.
I was just going to say, it's definitely a lot about leadership. I think we tend to look at other people's financial success stories and think, oh, that's amazing, that's glamorous, but we don't see the sacrifice that went into it. And for us, I had to lead myself to work harder than I've ever worked in my life. For 2 years straight, we were both working full-time jobs, 40, 50 hours a week. Then we were acquiring and managing our rental properties on the weekends, and I was writing my books in the evenings. So it does come down to being a leader, having that self-discipline to do the things that you don't feel like doing in the moment.
Right. Even when I wrote that book, I was working as an executive and I didn't have a lot of extra time to get. And I didn't want to take it from my family. So I got up at 5 well, actually, I got up at 4 something in the morning. I took a cold shower and then I would do a little bit of workout and then I'd sit down on the computer and write for 1 hour every day. And that's how I wrote my book at 5 a.m. There's a couple of times I worked in the evenings and other times, but that's that kind of mentality that you talked about, that other entrepreneurs will talk about, the other business leaders, like the Jeff Bezos, just working those hours, putting it in. And now I'd say that he makes enough money to be qualified as retirement if he wanted to.
Yeah, he's
from
probably
Amazon.
set. I think he's probably set.
Yeah, he continues to work, but I think he's pretty set. Ultimately, the leadership of finances is so huge, and you get to do that to people. What are some really cool stories that you have heard? And you probably can't say the names, and maybe just kind of give us a general picture of it. But I know you've had some amazing stories, and a lot of women reaching out to you.
Absolutely. I mean, the messages I get are absolutely incredible. There was one single mom, and I won't share the name or anything, but she was really struggling living paycheck to paycheck. And I felt for her because I had seen people in my life struggling in the same way. I mean, I grew up in a household where there wasn't a lot of extra money. We were always on a strict budget, and money was always a stressor in our family. And I grew up in a really wealthy county, so I always felt like I didn't fit in. So this woman's story, I felt very empathetic towards her situation. And just being a single mom, I mean, I don't have kids, so I don't know how they even do that. That's incredible to me. But she was desperate. She was willing to sacrifice. She wanted to do anything to make it work. So I just started working with her. She followed me. She read my books. She eventually signed up for my course, which is called Get Your Financial Bleep Together. It's a lot of fun. And she made massive moves. Here's the thing I learned from her is that we all generally have the knowledge of what to do in a general
Right.
sense. We know to save more money and pay off our debts and invest in the stock market. So
Right.
why don't we actually do it? It's because having that self-discipline and that leadership is the hardest part. So I realized in creating my course, if I can create an environment that can hold people accountable and give them the group support and the structure they need, their likelihood of success skyrockets. And that's why
Right.
I was so excited about creating that, because I've seen people have tangible outcomes and results from the course, and being able to work with them directly is a lot more fun for me. So that was just her success story. Overall, in my course takers have saved an average of $2,000 because of and during the course. So I
Wow.
just think there's something in there that's working with having the accountability and structure.
Now, on the flip side of someone who is struggling paycheck to paycheck, many of the people that I get to work with are making really nice six-figure incomes, and they're top levels of their field. One of the things I found out in just working with some of the people that I've worked with through the years, and I'll go back several years for this example. This person right here had an incredible income. He shared it with me. I mean, he was a multimillionaire. He owned his own lake, right? That we would used to go out and go skiing on. Fantastic. But also with increased income goes increased spending. And so they had just leveraged themselves and were in massive amount of debt. So I was working with a group at that time, and we were all gonna spend money better, kind of a mastermind group, if you will. And when we tallied up all the debt that we had collectively, and I didn't have any debt, so I didn't contribute, was to the millions of dollars. And I thought, where did
Mm.
this come from? And then I read through the individual contributions that it was just one person. So can help us understand this myth that if I just make more money, then I'll be okay.
Yeah. The key is to not give into lifestyle creep, because that's what tends to happen. And that's what you were just talking about, which is
Mhm.
as you make more money, you feel this entitlement or that you deserve to spend more money. And it's hard not to feel that way. After all, if you earned a promotion, you should get to live it up a little bit, right?
Right.
So the key is, how can you increase your income, but also decrease your expenses? Not even stay flat, but decrease your expenses over time. A lot of people in the financial community call that growing the gap. The bigger the gap between your income and your expenses, that's where the magic happens, in that gap. And I think as people do make six-figure incomes and they do make more money and position themselves in a little bit of a better position financially, that's when you can start to look at passive income and how can I start making my money work for me? whether that is investing it in the stock market, investing it in real estate, or just creating other cash flowing assets. That's the goal at that point when you're at that income of level or that level of income.
It's so interesting that there's a little pointing of fingers on both categories, right? So if you're on the barely making it, you say, if I could just get there, if I could just get to the spot where I'm making tons of money, then I'll be okay. And the people who are making tons of money to say, if my life was still just simple, they have it so easy. They don't have some of these huge things that I have to maintain. And there's just this pointing of fingers in both ways. And really, that's a victim mentality of, look what's happened to me. And you in both your books advocate for that. Take charge of your money, take charge of your retirement, take charge of your future. Let's talk about that passive income, aggressive retirement. So you retired at 27 and you gave me permission to ask about your income. So help us understand a little bit of what's happening to you and Andrew.
Yeah. So at this point, we're making over $15,000 a month in passive income. Our journey began in 2017. Before that, we didn't have any other extra income or side hustles or passive income. That year, we started investing in real estate, and I wrote my first best-selling book, Money Honey. Those are our two biggest income streams. From our rental income, we're making 8 to 10 grand a month in profit. From my book royalties, I'm making 4 or 5 grand a month in profit. I also have my online course now. We have invested in real estate syndications, Fundrise. There's a couple other things, but that's where we are from an income perspective. And kind of back to that victim mentality, I think you're completely right. A lot of people ask me, well, are you a trust fund baby? How do you own so much real estate? And the answer is no, I am not a trust fund baby. In fact, I never made six figures in my career or from a salary. Never made six figures. I started off after college making only $36,000. I could have had the mentality of, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get anywhere with this. And maybe I did starting out. I probably felt that way a little bit. But I didn't count myself out of the game. I just kept making progress. I knew that the small, consistent progress would add up over time. And the momentum built. And I was able to still retire at age 27, even off of a pretty small income. So I always say that to encourage people, don't count yourself out. You can use your leadership skills and be proactive. And no matter your income or your age, you can achieve early retirement.
I love it. And for everybody listening, take charge of your life and get the right influences around you. So Passive Income, Aggressive Retirement, great book to teach you. And really, you might not be there yet, but it's going to show you where you can get. And she even talks about in that book about writing your own book. So maybe that's something that you do. She helped me. Maybe she'll help you in that journey as well. And then Money Honey, you just don't have your money together. And whether you make $400,000 a year or $40,000 a year, really taking charge of that and not letting your money just go where it wants to go, but you telling your money where to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Love it. Love it. Rachel, if someone right here is just thinking, man, I'm motivated. What is my first step? What would you tell them that your very first, and it may have been something you already said, but for someone who's just listening going, you know what? Yeah, I'm ready to go. What is their first step?
So if you're just starting out, I would go back to tracking expenses. If you're in a place though, where you're looking to build passive income and you're like, where do I begin? I would say, ask yourself, do you have more time or money to invest into creating your passive income stream? Because you will need one or the other or both to create passive income. If you're anything like I was a few years ago, you would have said, I don't have time or money. And that's fine. The next question to ask yourself is, which one's going to be easier to generate? Will it be easier to free up more time or generate additional income? From there, you can really narrow down the different types of passive income. For example, portfolio income requires you to have a lot of upfront capital, but it's not really time intensive. Something else like royalty income, where you're creating a book or a course, you don't necessarily have to have a lot of money to do that. I launched Money Honey for under $600. It's just more of a time investment. It took me 9 months. So that's the difference. Yeah.
Yeah, I did invest myself into writing my book. I I paid for courses and all kinds of stuff. I did all the work myself, and I didn't pay for anybody to edit it, but I did pay people for formatting it. I didn't pay anybody to edit it because Rachel and I swapped services, and that was one of the services she provided for me was giving me feedback on the book. And she said to me, such a good friend, she said, Mike, this book is life-changing. People need this book. And then I got the book back in its first edited form, and it had so many red marks and comments on it that if I had not heard her say this book is great, then I probably would have thrown in the towel right there.
I tried to do the sandwich method, build you up, then give you the bad feedback, and then be like, yeah, this is great. This is awesome. I think once you revise this, it's going to be perfect. And it is. It's a bestseller.
It is true. It is true. Well, thank you so much for this, Rachel. Now, where can people find you, and what is something that might be helpful to someone?
Yeah, they can find me on Instagram at moneyhoneyrachel. And what I'd love to do for your listeners, Mike, is I'd love to give them my passive income starter kit for free. So if anyone wants to download that, they can go to moneyhoneyrachel.com/bonus.
Great. And I'll put that in the show notes as well, so people can find that also down below in YouTube. You'll find that in the description.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Rachel. I'm looking forward to continuing the journey of being friends and authors. It's amazing what happens when you work on something with somebody, the fun friendship that develops, and to the point where now if we're in each other's states, it's an obvious, hey, let's meet up.
Oh, I love it. I'm so grateful for you. And thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Advance with Mike Acker, a podcast designed to provide an edge for leaders through improving practical leadership skills and increasing confidence in speaking. Mike is a best-selling author and business owner who has helped many leaders increase their skills and their confidence, propelling them to new heights in their personal and professional endeavors. Join an incredible group of professionals taking the steps to become better leaders at connect.stepstoadvance.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.